All right, chocolate lovers out there, this video is for you. Today we're going to talk about why chocolate is actually good for your health, but very importantly, how do we make sense of all the information out there showing that chocolate can actually have dangerous levels of heavy metals. All right, chocolate is good for you, chocolate is bad for you. Which one is it, and how do we actually address this issue? I'm going to lay it on the table because I'm a chocolate lover and tell you how I go about thinking about a solution. All right, first of all, you got to know chocolate is a confection, it's candy. Chocolate is actually made with cacao. Cacao is a plant-based food which contains polyphenols. The more cacao you have in the chocolate, the darker the chocolate, right? It's 70% cacao, 80% cacao, even 100% cacao. That's when you actually have a lot of the polyphenols from the cacao plant-based. One of the things that we look for is for healthy chocolate is the percent higher levels of cacao. The more, the better. I always say 80% or higher is exactly what you want. Okay, now what does dark chocolate do for you? It does a lot of things. One of the most important things the polyphenols do is it recruits your stem cells. All right, that's right. We all have stem cells in our body. They were left over when we were growing in our mom's belly in the womb, and they formed our organs. All right. So when we were actually born, there were extra stem cells left over, about 70 million. All right. And they all got packed away, stored away in our bone marrow. So our bone marrow is the little the spongy stuff in the middle of our bone. If you ever took a chicken bone and broke it in half, you would actually see that brown stuff in the middle. That's bone marrow. That's packed with stem cells. So eating chocolate, the chocolate bioactives called proanthocyanidins actually calls out those stem cells into our bloodstream. It signals to them so they come flying out of our bone marrow like bees coming out of a hive, and they circulate around our blood. And you know what they do? They look for areas that need to be fixed, like potholes in the road. They're looking for where they need to patch. And not just in your blood vessels, although that's a very important place for dark chocolate to have its activity. The proanthocyanidins, stem cells, actually fix your blood vessels, but also other organs as well, right? The stem cells are going everywhere: your brain, your heart, your liver, your lungs, everywhere. So dark chocolate is actually a way of stimulating these stem cells to come on out in order to be able to do their thing. Now, how do we know, by the way, that it actually works? Well, studies have been done where they took men who have cardiovascular disease, coronary artery disease. We know that they have ragged blood vessels, not good blood flow, and they actually can do a test called flow-mediated dilation. This is basically where you see how resilient the blood vessels are. Good, normal, healthy blood vessels are very resilient, all right? And ones that are sick with cardiovascular disease, not so resilient. So how do you study this? You basically blow up a blood pressure cuff, just like in a doctor's office, and they put an ultrasound. And when the blood pressure cuff is completely squeezed, you're actually cutting off the blood flow, all right? You count 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi, and so on and so forth, all right? There's no blood flow going through. Then you release it suddenly, and blood jets right through the blood pressure cuff. And now you take the ultrasound to measure how quickly the blood vessels adapt and rebound after the blockage, all right? So you have no flow, all of a sudden a ton of flow, okay? A tsunami of blood comes out. How good is your blood vessel in actually receiving it? How resilient is it? This is called flow-mediated dilation, FMD, all right? Because the blood vessels have to dilate when more blood flow comes through. And it turns out that studies have looked at people who have had dark chocolate, actually cacao beverage, and they found that having the cacao beverage actually helps the blood vessels become more resilient because the stem cells have actually come out and fixed and repaired and regenerated the areas of the blood vessels in order to keep them as healthy and as resilient as possible. All right, so this is basically taking about 2 cups of hot cocoa, dark chocolate, for a month, 30 days. And some people were able to double the number of stem cells that come out of their blood vessels. Okay, so we now know that dark chocolate is good and why it's good for us. But what about this issue about heavy metals? What's up with that? All right, remember I told you cacao is a plant-based food, comes from the cacao pod. If you haven't seen a cacao pod, it kind of looks like a hard football. It's a little bit skinnier than a football. All right, it's heavy though, heavy like a football. And inside are these seeds that get roasted and fermented. Those are the beans that goes on to actually be crushed and powderized and turned into cocoa powder and made into chocolate. Okay, plant-based. All right, that means that it grows out of the ground from a cacao tree. Now, the cacao trees tend to grow in tropical areas, especially volcanic areas. And what happens in these tropical volcanic areas is that there's a lot of activity, geological activity, and deep inside the earth are heavy metals. All right, we're surrounded by heavy metals, arsenic, lead, cadmium, scary sounding, right? Okay, you don't want them from a factory spewing it out into the air around your house. But I can tell you that present in the earth are natural amounts of these cadmium and lead and arsenic. All right, so in plants growing around volcanic areas, you actually tend to have the roots take it up and you wind up actually having more in the environment. And so cacao beans, pods tend to pick up more heavy metals. That's one of the reasons, by the way, that dark chocolate has these heavy metals. All right. Another reason that heavy metals can actually accumulate is, unfortunately, many of these cacao plantations are in industrialized developing countries where they're not taking care of the environment. So some of the cacao trees are near toxic dumps. Now you've got dust flying everywhere. That's not healthy for you. These toxic metals, lead and cadmium, and so on and so forth. And a lot of times these cacao pods are opened up and the seeds are dried right out in the open, right? Bright, sunny, tropical environment, drying the seeds. Well, guess what? If there's lead or cadmium, heavy metals in the air, in the dust, they might fall down onto those seeds. They're going to get crushed. So those are two explanations for how cacao even gets any heavy metal. And although we haven't really checked yet, I bet if you checked many plant-based foods that grow in those areas, you'll also see heavy metals present. But we now know chocolate products can actually have it because there was a report, research report done by Consumer Reports, which is sort of a research group that evaluates products for quality and safety and construction and all that kind of stuff. And what they did is they looked at 28 chocolate bars and then 48 chocolate-based products. This was published a few years ago across 7 categories. So hot chocolate mix, chocolate bars, and even chocolate chips. And what they were looking for are 2 heavy metals. They were looking for lead, all right, and they were looking for cadmium. And what they found is that every single product had a little bit, at least a little bit of lead or cadmium. Now, why is that important? Well, if you have a little bit of lead or cadmium, no big deal. But if you continuously eat this, ingest it, and you start accumulating lead and cadmium into your bloodstream, well, it's a setup for problems. Accumulation in our tissues, in our body, of heavy metals can cause arrhythmias, heart problems. It can interfere with the generation of red blood cells, so you wind up having anemia. It can interfere with your brain and cause memory loss. It also can accumulate and damage your kidney as well. So heavy metals, nothing to joke about. These are actually really concerning contaminants in our environment. So what this Consumer Reports study did is take a look at all these chocolate products and figure out which ones actually had unacceptably high levels. So I'm not going to go into all the different products that they tested. You can look them up yourself on Consumer Reports. Just go on Google and search Consumer Reports, chocolate, and heavy metals, and you'll find that report right out there. But in this report, the part I want to call your attention to is that they also found chocolate products that actually had the lowest levels of heavy metals. So these would be, of all the chocolates, the safest ones to have. So let me tell you what they are. One of them is called Mast Organic Dark Chocolate, 80%. Okay, that's a safe one. Then Coca Tesa Organic Dark Chocolate, 70%. That one also had low lead. Coca, it's a Coca. Then Ghirardelli Intense Dark Chocolate, 86% cacao. All right, that's a good dark chocolate, 86%. A lot of those polyphenols. And then Ghirardelli Intense Dark Chocolate, 72% cacao. Those actually led the pack. So let me go over them again.
Hey, just a quick note. I wanted to share another great resource with you. Look, I love eating seasonally. When foods are in season, they taste fresher, their flavors are better, and they have, more importantly, more bioactives that help your body activate your health defenses. So they're better for you as well. And I put together a special guide that shows you some of these foods called 3 disease-fighting foods for the spring. Trust me, these are the foods that you're going to want to put in your cart the next time you're in the grocery store or when you're at the farmer's market. Get my guide for you right now for free in the caption below. Now, let's get back to the video.
The Mast Organic Dark Chocolate, 80% coca. Tesa Organic Dark Chocolate, 70% cacao. Ghirardelli Intense Dark Chocolate, 86% cacao. And Ghirardelli Intense Dark, 72% cacao. These are the ones that were considered the safest, all right? They have the lowest levels of both lead and cadmium. In any event, you shouldn't be eating too much dark chocolate anyway. It's a candy, like I'm telling you. And but these are the ones that you would actually choose. Now, if you had to try to figure out how to even get even less, go for slightly lower levels of cacao, all right? So if you wind up getting 80% cacao, which is what I generally recommend, that's actually a good level. You're going to get lots of polyphenols. But if you get 70%, you're going to get a little bit less of the bioactive, but you also get less of the lead and cadmium as well. All right. So that's really what I would actually do to recommend on how to approach this issue of getting the benefits of dark chocolate, but minimizing the dangers of heavy metals like lead or cadmium. The other thing I would tell you about dark chocolate, my strong recommendation is to nibble on it and not to just eat the whole bar down, okay, like when you were a kid. What I like to do when I eat my dark chocolate is I like to get a bar. I like to break it into pieces, all right, and I will have it with coffee, right? So this is like mocha without it mixed into the coffee. I'll nibble a little bit of chocolate. I'll sip a little coffee. The hot coffee will kind of melt the chocolate in my mouth. Absolutely delicious. And you get to eat it slowly, so you're not really getting as much of a glucose spike. All right, so that's a way to do it. Nibble on your dark chocolate and really enjoy. Our food is something we should enjoy. I mean, so many people love chocolate. I don't want to actually discourage you from eating it, but I think that this is one way for you to understand how to get the best of the dark chocolate and avoid the worst of the heavy metals. Hope you found this useful. Thanks for watching.
Hi there. If you enjoyed watching this video, I know you'll love the next one. Stay here and check it out, and I'll see you there.